Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Qliphort Yugioh deck profile for post the July 2019 ban list. With the new ban list finally out, I felt the need to definitely bring an update to this deck. I've been wanting to do an update to Qliphorts for quite some time now, but the new ban list gave me the true motive because we now have Clifford Scout at 3 on the list. You know how long I've waited for this card to be on 3. We now have fully powered Qliphorts again. I know the deck has been seriously limited with the new link format and just all the plays you can do with the deck in total, but having 3 Scout, I would say, definitely still does help for the consistency you can do with the deck and just having other options available to you if your opponent does destroy the 1 Scout you have on the field, knowing you have more and more to go for in the deck. But enough talk, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So I already spoke about it long enough already, but 3 Qliphort Scout is the newest card for the deck, finally back at 3. We got Sacrifice a good while back, I think Towers as well, but Qliphort Scout was definitely one of the strongest cards in the deck. A normal monster, Pendulum usually, but its Pendulum Scale effect is the strongest. With it, you cannot special summon monsters except Qli monsters, and the effect cannot be negated, and once per turn you can pay 800 life points to add 1 Qli card from your deck to your hand except for Qliphort Scout. So with it, you have access to almost every card in the deck that is Qliphort related. The spells, the monsters, you name it. Qliphort Scout sets up your plays for what you may want to do with the deck. So a definite 3 of is a true powerhouse. Having access to this also makes our summoner arts that much stronger since we have more search options for this card as well, along with this card. Just having this also for an easier chance to draw the card definitely does come in handy for sure with this deck. And I also run 2 Qliphort Monolith. I was debating before, when Scout was at 1, if I wanted to run more than 1 of this card with the deck, but now with just the consistency for our scale setup as well, and having 5 targets total for the setup for the deck, I really do feel comfortable running the additional monoliths just for these search options. It gives you draw power. You cannot special summon monsters except Qli, like all the scale effects, and this effect cannot be negated. Once per turn during the end phase, if you tribute summon this turn, you can draw a monster. You can draw a number of cards equal to the number of Qli monsters you tributed for a tribute summon this turn. So just additional draw power at the end of the turn with this card, a great benefit for sure with your Clifford Scout scales set up and tributing your weaker Qliphort monsters for their own effects. And then for some of the other 3 ofs that I run in the deck, I run 3 Qliphort Helix. You cannot special summon monsters except Qli monsters. This effect can't be negated, and all monsters your opponent control lose 300 attack. This is the scale effect for Helix, but the more important one is you can normal summon this card without tributing it. If it's normal summon this way and becomes a level 4, and its original attack becomes 1800, and if this card is tributed, you can target 1 spell or trap on the field and destroy it. So you tribute them for your summon of your bigger Qliphort monsters, and with it you'll get the effects of the Qliphort monsters you tributed for. Helix being the spell and trap destruction effect definitely does come in handy for sure with the deck, and definite 3 of as well, just to open up these options available to you so you can pendulum summon them out and then tribute for your bigger monsters. The same goes for Qliphort Carrier, which I also run 3 of. All Qli monsters you currently control gain 300 attack, so unlike Helix that lowers the attack, Carrier in the scale raises it. And it has the same requirements for the normal summon, becoming 1800 attack, and 400 for level 4 for it. And the tribute effect, if this card is tributed, you can target 1 monster on the field and return it to the hand. You can take care of pesky extra deck monsters, especially with this card. If Helix takes care of the spell and traps, Carrier takes care of the monsters. They both work very, very well together, and with the other bigger tribute monsters that we go for in the deck. One of the main ones being Qliphort Stealth. This one is, like I said, the one I usually go for most of the time. All Qli monsters you control gain 300 attack is the pendulum scale, but for the tribute effect, if this card is tribute summoned by tributing a Qli monster or monsters, you can target 1 card on the field, return it to the hand. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this, so if you chain the effects of Carrier and Helix in response to your Qliphort Stealth. You'll be able to bounce a card on the field, and if it's the final part of the chain, your opponent won't be able to activate anything in response to the whole chain, which is very, very nice. You can even bounce back your Clifford Scout and then reuse the Scout, because once you use it once that turn, you can bounce it back to hand again and then activate it again. So it's very, very useful for all the effects. Or you can bounce something on your opponent's field along with Carrier's own effect, just for an additional bounce back to your hand if it's another card you may be worried about. And I also run 2 Qliphort Disc. This one is a special summon Qliphort. All Qli monsters you control gain 300 attack for its scale effect again. And if this one is tribute, you can special summon 2 Qliphort monsters and from your deck. And then during the end phase, you destroy them. Just more swarm power with this card, especially if you can set up the field. It definitely does come in handy with our field spell we run, Laser Clip, giving you that additional summon for one of our big powerhouse monsters of the deck, Qliphort Towers, and just having that special summon option just for more monster swarm as well with the cards. And then for a few one-ups, I run 1 Qliphort Shell and 1 Qliphort Cephalopod. This one has a shuffle back effect for monsters, which gives you additional life, and Shell can attack twice and has piercing damage as well. I like them both as one-ofs. They're deck choices if I need to search them for with Scouts, if I need them for like a specific deck I'm going up against, or just for the life point gain. They both do come in handy, especially for those plays. Plus, I also like them for the fact that I run big numbers of Disc and Stealth, which are low scales. So just having additional high scales, along with the fact that, obviously Scout is a high scale now, just helps to balance things out as well. And then lastly, for the boss monster, I run 1 Qliphort Towers. I only run the 1 of this card. It definitely does help for a lot of different plays. You need to tribute 3 Qliphort monsters to summon it out. It's unaffected by spell traps or activated monster effects, and also has an effect to send your opponent's cards. So along with being a boss monster and also lowering your opponent's monster's attack by 500, a strong one to get out for sure. It's searchable though. That's why I just like to run it of the 1. Other than that, it doesn't really help contribute for your scale plays. I like to add it to hand unless I just get lucky with the draw and I have my setup ready to go. But like I said, I just like it at the 1 for that reason. Anything else kind of gets a little cloggy when I can rely on some of the other bigger Qliphorts as well as this card. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. I can consistently run 3 Summoner Arts again. Before, I would go for the 1 Scout if I got this search off, then have these open just for the monoliths if need be. But now I have full search for more and more Scouts, so all the better with this card especially, to run for plenty of searches now with the deck. So I can confidently say to run 3 of this card with the deck. And the same goes for Sacrifice. This one just gives you so many more bonuses. You equip only to a Qli monster. It gains 300 attack and cannot be destroyed by battle. The equipped monster can be treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a Qli monster. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Qli monster from your deck to your hand. So it has search, power, tribute requirements, and also protecting it from battle. Searchable, but like I said, just the big benefits and the fact that it gives you a search is a definite 3 of for me, especially in the deck. Can't go wrong with Sacrifice, especially. Like I said, one of the best spells for the Qliphort deck. And then for the 1 of, I run 1 Laser Clip. This additional normal summon definitely does come in handy if I just don't have a scale setup, but I still want to tribute out a monster. Giving me the normal summon, and then 1 additional normal summon for this definitely does come in handy for the normal summon effect gain for this card. And lastly, I would say the biggest weakness for the Qliphort deck is obviously just being hand-trapped, whether it be for Scout on its search by an Ash Blossom or destroyed off of Ghost Ogre, you name it. Call by the Grave definitely does come in handy, being able to take care of a lot of answers my opponent may have in the graveyard to respond against those cards. I need some way to stop it because I need my Pendulum Scale plays to go off. So 3 Call by the Grave, the fact that we still have this card at full power, very, very glad that we do, for the deck is a great answer to a lot of problems. And lastly, just for a little more draw power consistency, I'm trying out 2 Pot of Desires in the deck. We have 3 of plenty of the cards to continue plays. Like I said, now that we're running 3 Scout, there's no real fear of running this card and, accidentally hitting them and then not having a Scout to work with. A lot of times also I can search out the Scout, have my play set up, and then the Pot of Desires is just an easy access to more cards in my hand, more resources I draw and can use. If you don't want to end up running this card, you can try out some other options. You can try Twin Twister pair. I don't like it as much in the deck. You can try an Upstart Goblin with another added card into the deck if you wanted to try another search card, you name it. You can give it a shot, but I definitely do recommend just trying the 2 desires. Like I said, most of the time when I do end up using it, I already have my search plays for Scout, either whether it be Summoner Art and searched out, or, you know, just opening up the Scout and not really fearing much else except for the draw 2 with the deck. And that is it for the spells. We'll now move on to the traps. I run 1 Climate Change. This is just good recycle of resources face up in my extra deck. You add up to 3 face up Pendulum monster cards from your extra deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 Climate Change per turn. Just like I said, when Link format came around, we're definitely limited to what we can play in the Qliphort deck. So having Climate Change to add back resources to my hand. You can't stop a Pendulum summon of a lot of cards from the hand, so Climate Change late game definitely does help for those plays. Just a little additional draw power. I run 1 Soul Transition. If you control no special summon monsters, tribute 1 face up level 4, normal summon or set monster and draw 2 cards. You can only activate 1 Soul Transition per turn, and you cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate it. I'm testing it out. If you don't want to run it, you can try a 3rd Desires. That gets a little cloggy to me. If you want to try more Soul Transitions, you can drop down your number of desires. It works for both of the scenarios, but this one definitely does help for the tribute and the draw when I just need it for a little more draw power and then come next turn as well. And then another 1 skill drain. This card's insane with the deck still, very much so, being a strong powerhouse to rely on for the deck for sure. Another one being lose 1 turn. This shuts down a lot of key plays. The only weakness I would say are the Link monsters. If you want to try something else, you could try out Rival, just basically for those plays. You can go with the plays for the lose a turns, and then go off of those for your additional shutdown of your opponent's cards. And then I also run 2 Goes in Match. This is just an added option. Each player can only control 1 attribute of a monster and send all their face-up monsters they control to the graveyard. So all the Qliphorts being Earth definitely doesn't limit us at all for our plays, so you're definitely safe. And it can shut down a lot of different plays your opponent may do with their cards especially. It's just an added bonus along with cards like Skill Drain and Lose 1 Turn that can really shut down what your opponent can do with their deck. And then lastly, for the main deck and the trap lineup, I just run 2 Solemn Strike. I know Solemn Judgment is back at 3 on the list, but I really don't like the option for, you know, lowering my life when I do use it a lot for a Clifford Scout. Strike is just a good option for the 1500 life to stop an opponent's monster effect or special summon for that card, and I can rely on it without having to waste too much life and still have enough to use for Clifford Scout. And that's it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. You don't actually use the extra deck much, but I wanted to keep it as open to the possible summons you could use when your scales are free. I run the 1 Qliphort Genius. This card definitely, when you can make it, is a big help for sure with the deck. Just with your machine monsters for the hand, for the special summon with your Qliphort cards. Same goes for Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. This one, with your scale setup, being able to give you more draw power and destroying and setting up other Qliphorts, especially if your opponent destroys your Scout and you want to add it back to your hand. This card can definitely just help for that recycle power as well. And then I also run just 2 Mrs. Radiant when you can make them. It's a pretty nice power boost for all the Earth Qliphorts we run. And then for some more generics, I run 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Akashic Magician, 1 Triple Burst Dragon, and 1 Borolo Dragon. And since all the Qliphort monsters turn into level 4 monsters, I run 1 Daigusto and Morale, 1 Evil Swarm Exciton Knight, 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Castel, and 1 Gaga Cowboy to wrap up the extra deck. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. And like I said before, I'm very excited that this card is now on 3 on the ban list. So I'm hoping to test this deck out very, very soon. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.